Maya Chen stood near the large viewing window of Luna Station, watching Earth spin slowly below. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here, like a marble floating in space. She was 17 years old and had never seen anything more beautiful. The Zephyrian delegation should arrive soon, her father said, walking up beside her. Ambassador David Chen wore his formal diplomatic uniform, the one with all the shiny buttons that Maya always teased him about. "Are you ready for this?" Maya nodded and smoothed down her dress. It was white with small blue flowers, something her mother had picked out before she died 3 years ago. Maya always wore it to important events because it made her feel like her mother was still with her. Today was the interspecies cultural exchange, a big meeting where humans and aliens would share their art, music, and food. Maya was here because her father thought it would be good for her to see how diplomacy worked. She was thinking about studying international relations in college, maybe following in his footsteps. "Remember," her father said quietly, "some of these aliens might seem strange to you, but they're people too, just like us. They have families and dreams and fears." Maya smiled. Her father always said things like that. It was why he was such a good diplomat. He saw the good in everyone, even aliens that looked like giant bugs or had tentacles instead of arms. The main hall of Luna Station was huge, with a clear dome ceiling that showed the stars. Tables were set up everywhere, each one representing a different species. The humans had brought paintings and music from Earth. The Altarians had strange glowing sculptures that hummed when you touched them. The Keplerians showed off their amazing healing technology, but it was the Zephyrian table that caught Maya's attention. The Zephyrians looked almost human, except their skin was a light blue color and they had silver eyes that seemed to shine in the light. They were known throughout the galaxy for being peaceful and wise. Their table displayed beautiful crystals that changed color based on the emotions of people nearby. Maya walked over to the Zephyrian display, fascinated by the shifting colors. A young Zephyrian male stood behind the table. He looked to be about her age, with the typical blue skin and silver eyes of his species. "Hello," Maya said, smiling. "These crystals are amazing. How do they work?" The young Zephyrian looked at her for a moment, his silver eyes studying her face. Something about his expression made Maya feel uncomfortable, but she kept smiling anyway. "They respond to the life force of living beings," he said. His voice was soft and musical like most Zephyrians. Each emotion creates a different energy pattern. Maya reached out to touch one of the crystals. It immediately turned a warm golden color. "What does gold mean?" "Curiosity," the Zephyrian said. "And kindness," Maya laughed. "That sounds about right. I'm always curious about everything. My father says it's going to get me in trouble someday." The Zephyrian's expression didn't change. Perhaps he is right. There was something cold in his voice that made Maya step back. The crystal in her hand suddenly turned dark red, almost black. She had never seen that color before. "What does this color mean?" she asked, holding up the crystal, but the young Zephyrian was already moving. His hand went to something hidden under his robes. Maya saw a flash of metal, something that looked like a small device. In that moment she realized this wasn't a cultural exchange representative. This was something else entirely. Maya opened her mouth to scream, but the Zephyrian was too fast. The device in his hand made a soft humming sound, and Maya felt a sharp pain in her chest. She looked down and saw a small hole in her white dress right over her heart. The blue flowers were turning red with her blood. She fell to her knees, her hand pressing against the wound. Around her, people were starting to notice something was wrong. Someone screamed. Alarms began to sound. The Zephyrian looked down at Maya with those cold silver eyes. "For the glory of the true Zephyrian Empire," he whispered. Then he pressed another button on his device and disappeared, his form becoming transparent and then invisible. Maya's father reached her first. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trying to stop the bleeding. "Maya, stay with me, sweetheart. Help is coming." But Maya could feel her life slipping away. The hole in her chest was too big, too deep. The weapon had been designed to kill, and it had done its job perfectly. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the alarms and shouting. "The crystal." It turned black. "What does black mean?" Her father's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, baby. I don't know." Those were the last words Maya Chen heard before the darkness took her. The medical team arrived within minutes, but it was too late. The ambassador's daughter was dead. killed by an unknown weapon in front of hundreds of witnesses. The young Zephyrian had vanished completely, leaving no trace except for the crystal Maya still held in her hand. It had turned completely black now, darker than space itself. Security footage showed everything, but the assassin's cloaking technology made it impossible to track him. He had simply walked out of the station and disappeared into the crowded docking bays. By the time security realized what had happened, he was already gone. News of Maya's death spread across human space within hours. The daughter of one of Earth's most respected diplomats, murdered in cold blood at a peace gathering. The images were broadcast on every news channel. The young girl in her flower dress dying in her father's arms while aliens and humans watched in horror. Earth's government demanded answers. Who was the assassin? Why had he killed an innocent girl? The Galactic Consortium, the alliance of alien species that governed most of the galaxy, promised a full investigation. They called it a tragic incident and offered their condolences. But their investigation moved slowly. Too slowly for the humans. Days passed, then weeks, and still no answers came. The consortium said they were doing everything they could, but the assassin seemed to have vanished completely. They offered to pay compensation to the Chen family, as if money could replace a daughter. Ambassador Chen refused their money. On the day of Maya's funeral, he stood before the cameras and said words that would echo across the galaxy. My daughter died because someone thought human life was cheap. They thought they could kill one of us and we would just accept it. They were wrong. The funeral was held on Earth in the same small town where Maya had been born. Thousands of people came to pay their respects. They brought flowers and pictures and toys, creating a memorial that stretched for blocks. The little girl who had loved blue flowers and dreamed of seeing the stars had touched more lives than she would ever know. But it wasn't just humans who mourned. Across the galaxy, other species watched the funeral broadcasts and felt something they had never experienced before. They saw the depth of human grief, the way an entire planet wept for one young girl. They began to understand that humans were different from other species in ways they had never imagined. In the weeks that followed Maya's death, something changed in human space. The grief turned to anger, and the anger turned to something harder and more dangerous. Earth's military began receiving more volunteers than they had ever seen before. Weapons factories started working around the clock. Ships that had been decommissioned were brought back into service. The aliens didn't understand what was happening. They thought the humans would eventually calm down and accept the consortium's promises of justice. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping in human nature for centuries. They had killed one of their children. And humanity was about to show them exactly what that meant. The meeting room in the Earth Defense Command was silent except for the soft hum of the holographic displays. President Sarah Martinez sat at the head of the table, her face pale but determined. Around her, the most powerful military leaders on Earth waited for her decision. How many? She asked quietly. General Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's military forces, cleared his throat. 500,000, Madam President. Full mobilization. Every available soldier, every ship, every weapon we have. The number hung in the air like a weapon itself. No human military force of that size had ever been assembled before, not even during the worst wars in Earth's history. The consortium will see this as an act of war, said Secretary of State Williams. They'll unite against us. We'll be fighting the entire galaxy. President Martinez looked at the image on the main screen. It showed Maya Chen's funeral. Thousands of people holding candles in the darkness. The girl's father stood at the podium, his voice breaking as he spoke about his daughter's dreams. They killed a child, the president said, an innocent girl who never hurt anyone. And they expect us to just accept their apologies and move on. The consortium has promised to investigate. Williams tried again. They say they're looking for the assassin. 6 weeks, General Hayes said. It's been 6 weeks since Maya died, and they haven't found anything. No leads, no suspects, no answers. Either they're completely useless or they're protecting the killer. President Martinez stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the construction yards where Earth's shipbuilders were working day and night. New ships were being built faster than ever before, their hulls gleaming in the artificial light. What do our intelligence services say? She asked. Director Lisa Park of Earth Intelligence spoke up. We've identified the assassin, Madam President. His name is Vex Thul, a member of a radical Zephyrian faction that believes humans are inferior and dangerous. He's currently hiding on Kepler 442b, a heavily fortified Zephyrian military world. And the consortium knows this? They have to, Park said. Our information came from sources inside their own government. They're protecting him. The silence in the room was complete. Everyone understood what this meant. The Galactic Consortium, the organization that claimed to represent peace and justice in the galaxy, was hiding the killer of an innocent human girl. Madam President, General Hayes said carefully, if we move forward with this operation, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. President Martinez turned back to face the room. Her decision was already made. Had been made the moment she saw Maya Chen dying in her father's arms. Good, she said. I want them to see us differently. I want them to understand that human life is not cheap. I want them to know that when you kill one of us, you answer to all of us. She sat back down and looked at each person in the room. General Hayes, you have authorization for full military mobilization. I want 500,000 soldiers ready for deployment within 3 months. Yes, ma'am, Hayes said.
What are our rules of engagement?
Find Vexthul. Bring him back alive if possible. But if the Zephyrians try to stop us... She paused, thinking of Maya's flower dress stained with blood. Then we show them why humans survived on a planet where everything wanted to kill us. The mobilization began immediately. Across Earth and its colonies, young men and women lined up at recruitment centers. They came from every continent, every country, every walk of life. They were farmers and teachers, students and engineers. Most had never held a weapon before, but they all had one thing in common. They were angry. The training camps were unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Drill sergeants pushed the recruits harder than ever before, knowing they would soon face alien technology and alien warriors. The recruits didn't complain. They had seen the videos of Maya's death, and they understood what they were fighting for. In the weapons factories, scientists worked to reverse engineer captured alien technology. Earth had been studying alien weapons and defenses for decades, slowly learning their secrets. Now that knowledge was being put to use, human weapons were upgraded with alien power sources. Human armor was reinforced with alien materials. The shipyards were busiest of all. Earth's fleet was large for a single planet, but tiny compared to the forces of the Galactic Consortium. To stand a chance, every ship would need to be perfect. Engineers worked around the clock installing new weapons and shields. Old ships were brought out of mothballs and upgraded. New ships rolled off the production lines daily. Admiral Sarah Reeves was chosen to lead the expedition. She was 53 years old and had lost her own daughter in a civilian transport accident 5 years earlier. When President Martinez offered her the command, she accepted without hesitation. I understand what Ambassador Chen is going through, she told the president. No parent should have to bury their child, especially not because some alien decided that our children don't matter. The Admiral's flagship was the UES Vengeance, a massive battle cruiser that had been built specifically for this mission. Its armor was twice as thick as any previous human ship, and its weapons could punch through almost any known defense. Most importantly, it carried a message written in large letters across its hull in 17 different languages. Remember Maya Chen. As the fleet assembled, the galaxy watched with growing concern. Most alien species had never seen humans act this way before. They were used to diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. They weren't prepared for 500,000 soldiers ready to cross the galaxy for one dead girl. The Zephyrian government sent urgent messages to Earth, promising that they were conducting their own investigation. They claimed they had no knowledge of Vexthul's location and demanded that Earth call off its military buildup. Earth's response was silence. The Galactic Consortium held emergency sessions, debating how to respond to what they called human aggression. Some species suggested economic blockades. Others proposed sending their own fleets to defend Zephyrian space. Earth's response was more ships. 3 months after Maya's death, the human fleet was ready. 500,000 soldiers on 800 ships, the largest military force Earth had ever assembled. They carried enough firepower to level a continent and enough supplies to stay in space for years. The night before departure, Admiral Reeves visited Maya's memorial on Luna Station. The place where the girl had died was now a garden, filled with blue flowers from every human world. People came here to remember not just Maya, but what humanity was capable of when united by grief. "We're coming for him, sweetheart," the Admiral whispered to the memorial stone. "We're coming for the bastard who took you away." The fleet departed Earth on a Tuesday morning. As the ships passed Luna Station, each one fired a single shot into empty space, a salute to the girl who had changed everything. The plasma bolts lit up the darkness like shooting stars, visible from Earth's surface. Ambassador Chen stood at his daughter's grave and watched the lights streak across the sky. He had tried to stop the fleet, tried to convince the president that Maya wouldn't have wanted a war fought in her name, but he understood why it was happening. The galaxy needed to learn that human children were precious, that their lives mattered. As the last ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying 500,000 soldiers toward an alien world, Chen whispered the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. Remember Maya. Remember what we're capable of when we stand together. The Galactic Consortium received Earth's final message as the fleet entered hyperspace. It was brief and to the point. We are coming for Vexthul. Stand aside or be moved aside. This is not a negotiation. Across the galaxy, alien leaders realized that they had made a terrible mistake. They had thought humans were just another species, driven by logic and self-interest like everyone else. They had never understood that humans were different, that they would sacrifice everything for family, even family they had never met. The human fleet was 3 days out from Kepler 442b when the Zephyrian government finally admitted the truth. Vexthul was on their world, and they had been hiding him. They begged for mercy, promised to turn him over immediately, but it was too late for mercy. The humans were coming, and they were bringing 500,000 reasons why alien children should never kill human children again. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a steel storm. 800 ships in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of the alien sun. The Zephyrian defense forces had been preparing for weeks, but nothing could have prepared them for the sight of so many human vessels arriving at once. Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the tactical displays update as her ship spread out across the system. The Zephyrians had 43 warships protecting their homeworld, along with dozens of defense platforms and orbital weapons. It should have been enough to stop any reasonable attack, but there was nothing reasonable about what the humans were doing. "Admiral," said Commander Torres, her tactical officer, "the Zephyrian fleet is moving to intercept. They're broadcasting on all frequencies demanding that we leave their space immediately." "Any mention of Vexthul?" Reeves asked. "No, ma'am. They're still claiming they don't know where he is." Reeves nodded grimly. Earth's intelligence was certain the assassin was on the planet below, hidden in a military compound in the northern continent. The Zephyrians had had months to hand him over. Instead, they had chosen to protect him. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. Across the fleet, 500,000 human soldiers listened as their admiral's voice echoed through their ship's communication systems. "Today, we finish what a coward started 3 months ago," Reeves said. Maya Chen was 17 years old. She liked blue flowers and wanted to study diplomacy. She believed in peace between species, and she died because someone decided that human life didn't matter. The admiral paused, looking out at the alien world that sparkled like a blue-green jewel in the darkness. "The galaxy is watching us today. They want to see if humans will back down when faced with superior numbers. They want to know if we're serious about protecting our children. Let's show them." The first shots came from the Zephyrian fleet. Bright energy beams lanced out toward the human ships, expecting to catch them off guard. But the humans had been preparing for this moment for months. Their shields absorbed the alien weapons with ease, the new technology Earth's scientists had developed holding firm. "All ships," Reeves commanded. "Return fire." The human response was overwhelming. 800 ships opened fire at once, their weapons upgraded with alien technology and powered by human determination. The Zephyrian lead ship vanished in a ball of plasma. 3 more followed within seconds. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer UES Maya's Promise, one of the smaller ships in the fleet. Her crew was young, most of them barely older than the girl they were fighting for. As Zephyrian fighters swooped toward her ship, Santos felt a cold fury settle over her. "Target their engines," she told her weapons officer. "I want them alive to see what happens when you mess with human children." The destroyer's guns tracked the alien fighters with precision that surprised even Santos. The new targeting systems, reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, made the human weapons deadly accurate. One by one, the Zephyrian fighters found themselves disabled, drifting helpless in space as the human fleet moved past them toward the planet. On the surface of Kepler 442b, General Zethkar of the Zephyrian Defense Force watched the orbital battle with growing horror. His ships were being destroyed faster than he could count. The humans weren't just winning, they were dominating completely. How is this possible? He asked his aide. Intelligence said the humans were primitive, barely capable of interstellar flight. Perhaps intelligence was wrong. Sir, the aide replied nervously. Zethkar activated his communication array and sent an urgent message to the human fleet. Admiral Reeves, this is General Zethkar. We are prepared to negotiate. Surely we can find a peaceful solution to this conflict. The Admiral's response came back within minutes, broadcast not just to the Zephyrian military but to the entire planet. General, there is only one negotiation available. Hand over Vexthal, and my ships will hold position. Continue to protect him and we will come down there and take him ourselves. We cannot locate this individual you speak of. Zethkar lied. Our investigations have found no evidence that he is on our world. The human admiral's laughter was cold and humorless. General, we know exactly where he is. Building Complex 77 Alpha, Northern Continent, 3rd sublevel, Room 14. We know what he had for breakfast this morning. Stop lying to us. Zethkar felt his blood turn to ice. The humans had intelligence sources on the planet itself. How was that possible? The answer came from Colonel Sarah Kim, commander of Earth Special Operations Forces. Her people had been on Kepler 442b for 2 weeks, infiltrating the planet using stolen Zephyrian transport codes. They looked human enough to pass casual inspection, and their advanced surveillance equipment had been tracking Vexthal's every movement. Overwatch to Fleet Command, Kim reported from her hidden position overlooking the military compound. Target is confirmed in position. He's surrounded by a full security detail, but my team can take them out if needed. Negative, Colonel, Admiral Reeves replied. We do this the hard way. I want every Zephyrian on this planet to see what happens when you kill human children. The orbital bombardment began at sunset on the alien world. The human fleet's weapons were precisely targeted, destroying military installations while avoiding civilian areas. But the message was clear. Nowhere was safe from human reach. Major David Park led the first wave of dropships toward the planet's surface. His battalion was made up of volunteers from Earth's colonies, men and women who had grown up on the frontier where life was hard and death was always close. They understood violence in a way that the peaceful Zephyrians never could. Remember your training, he told his soldiers as their dropship shook under anti-aircraft fire. These aliens think we're savages. Let's not disappoint them. The landing was violent and chaotic. Zephyrian ground forces tried to stop the human dropships, but their weapons were designed for fighting other Zephyrians, not the armored assault craft that humanity had built specifically for this mission. The dropships punched through the alien defenses like bullets through paper. Sergeant Lisa Chen, no relation to Maya, but the name had driven her to volunteer anyway, was among the first humans to set foot on alien soil. Her squad spread out quickly, their weapons ready. The Zephyrian soldiers they faced looked terrified, their silver eyes wide with fear. They're just kids, one of her soldiers said, looking at the young Zephyrian troops. So was Maya. Chen replied coldly. She raised her weapon and fired. The battle for the military compound was brief but brutal. The Zephyrians fought bravely, but they had never faced anything like human soldiers in full combat mode. Humanity had evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill them, where survival meant being more violent and more determined than anything else on the planet. The Zephyrians had evolved on a peaceful world where conflicts were resolved through discussion and compromise. They had no concept of the kind of total warfare that humans brought to Kepler 442b. Vexthal, the assassin who had started it all, huddled in his safe room as the sound of human weapons echoed through the compound above him. He had thought himself untouchable, protected by his government and hidden on a world light years from Earth. He had never imagined that the humans would cross the galaxy for one dead girl. The door to his safe room exploded inward in a shower of metal and sparks. Through the smoke came 3 human soldiers, their faces hidden behind combat masks. But Vexthal could see their eyes, cold and merciless. Vexthal of the Zephyrian Empire, one of them said in accented Zephyrian. You are under arrest for the murder of Maya Chen. The assassin reached for a weapon, but the humans were faster. A stun blast dropped him to the floor, his body paralyzed but his mind still aware. As they dragged him from his hiding place, he saw the destruction that his single act of violence had brought to his world. Across the galaxy, other species watched the footage from Kepler 442b with growing alarm. The humans had crossed dozens of star systems and destroyed an entire planetary defense force for one person. They had shown a level of determination and military capability that no one had suspected. The Altarians immediately began reviewing their own security protocols. The Kepleroids started investigating every human death that had occurred in their space over the past decade. The message was clear: humanity's children were off limits, no matter what the cost of protecting them. As the sun rose on Kepler 442b, the human fleet held position in orbit while their soldiers secured the planet below. They had come for one alien and they had gotten him. But the cost had been enormous. An entire world's defenses destroyed, thousands of Zephyrian soldiers dead or wounded, and a clear demonstration that humans would go to any lengths to protect their own. Admiral Reeves stood on her bridge, watching as Vexthul was brought aboard her flagship in chains. The assassin looked smaller than she had expected, just another alien who had made the mistake of thinking human life was cheap. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "It's time to go home." But as the human fleet prepared to leave Kepler 442b, everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not just another species to be ignored or dismissed. They were something far more dangerous. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium had been going on for 16 hours straight. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Their voices raised in anger, fear, and confusion. High Counselor Velthar of the Altarians stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing frantically as he tried to maintain order. The usually calm and dignified chamber looked more like a war council than a diplomatic meeting. The humans have violated every principle of civilized warfare, declared Ambassador Kethmos of the Keplerians, his tentacles writhing with agitation. They destroyed an entire planetary defense system for one individual. This cannot be allowed to stand. One individual who was a child interrupted Counselor Yathara of the Vegan Collective. "Perhaps we should consider why the humans reacted so strongly." "Because they are savages," Kethmos shot back. "They prove it with every action they take." In the human delegation section, Ambassador David Chen sat quietly, listening to the aliens argue about his daughter's death, as if it were a mathematical problem to be solved. His hands were clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white, but his face remained calm. After 3 months of grief, he had learned to hide his emotions from these creatures who seemed to think human pain was less important than their political concerns. High Counselor, Velthar finally restored order by activating the chamber's sound dampeners. When the room fell silent, he looked directly at the human delegation. "Ambassador Chen," he said formally, "the consortium demands that your government immediately recall its fleet and surrender the Zephyrian citizen Vexthul for proper trial by galactic authorities." Chen stood slowly, his legs feeling weak after months of barely sleeping and hardly eating. When he spoke, his voice was steady but filled with a quiet rage that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "High Counselor," he began, "3 months ago my daughter Maya was murdered in cold blood at a peace gathering. She was 17 years old and had never hurt anyone in her life. Your proper galactic authorities spent 12 weeks protecting her killer while offering my family money as compensation for her death." He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled aliens who had failed his daughter so completely. "You ask us to trust the same system that allowed her killer to walk free? The same authorities who told us that one human life wasn't worth disrupting galactic peace?" Chen's voice grew stronger, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "My government's answer is no." The chamber erupted in angry voices again, but Chen wasn't finished. "Vexthul will face trial on Earth, under human law, for the murder of a human citizen. If the consortium doesn't like it, you're welcome to try and stop us." In orbit around Kepler 442b, Admiral Reeves received the transmission from the consortium session with grim satisfaction. She had expected this response. The aliens still didn't understand what they were dealing with. "Ma'am," Commander Torres reported, "we're receiving multiple hyperspace signatures. The consortium is sending a fleet to intercept us." Reeves studied the tactical display. 300 alien ships from a dozen different species converging on their position. It was the largest combined fleet the consortium had ever assembled, and it was coming for her people. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 18 hours, Admiral." Reeves nodded and activated the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Reeves. The consortium is sending a fleet to take our prisoner from us. They still think they can protect child killers from human justice." She paused, thinking of Maya Chen's memorial service and the thousands of humans who had wept for a girl they'd never met. They're about to learn otherwise. All ships prepare for combat. Meanwhile, in the secure holding cell aboard the UES Vengeance, Vexthal sat in chains, staring at the bulkhead. The cell was small and uncomfortable, designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in human space. For someone who had lived his entire life in the comfortable safety of Zephyrian society, it was a nightmare. The door opened and a human guard entered, a young woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She carried a tray of food, the standard rations that human soldiers ate during long deployments. "I'm not hungry," Vexthal said in halting English. "Eat anyway," the guard replied. "Admiral's orders." "She wants you healthy for your trial." Vexthal looked up at her with his silver eyes. "Do you know why I killed the girl?" The guard stopped moving. Her name was Private Jennifer Walsh, and she was 22 years old. She had joined the military after seeing Maya's death on the news, driven by the same rage that had motivated 500,000 other humans. "Does it matter?" she asked quietly. "She was a symbol," Vexthal continued, apparently not noticing the dangerous edge in the young woman's voice. "Humans spreading their violence across the galaxy, contaminating peaceful species with their aggressive nature. Her death was meant to send a message." Private Walsh set down the tray very carefully. When she looked at Vexthal again, her eyes held the same cold fury that had driven human soldiers to cross the galaxy. "Well, you certainly sent a message," she said. "Unfortunately for you, we sent one back." 18 hours later, the consortium fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the Kepler 442 system. 300 ships from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, their combined firepower enough to level a continent. They had come to arrest the human fleet and recover their Zephyrian ally. What they found waiting for them was something none of them had expected. The human fleet had not fled. Instead, they had used the time to dig in, positioning themselves in a defensive formation around Kepler 442b's largest moon. Cargo ships had unloaded military equipment and weapons platforms, turning the moon into a fortress. 800 human warships waited in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. Fleet Admiral Texvar of the Altarian Navy commanded the consortium force. He had fought in 3 galactic conflicts and considered himself an expert on space warfare. But as he studied the human defensive positions, he felt a chill run down his spine. "They're not running," his tactical officer observed unnecessarily. "No," Texvar agreed. "They're not." He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Admiral Reeves. This is Fleet Admiral Texvar of the Galactic Consortium Combined Fleet. You are ordered to surrender your prisoner and withdraw from consortium space immediately." The response came back within seconds, broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear it. "Admiral Texvar, this is Admiral Reeves. My prisoner is a child killer who will face justice under human law. If you want him, come and take him." The silence that followed was broken by Admiral Texvar's aide, a young Kepler who had never seen actual combat. "Sir, surely they can't be serious. They're outnumbered 3-1. Texvar studied the tactical display, noting the precision of the human formations and the obvious quality of their equipment. These weren't the desperate actions of a cornered enemy. This was the calculated response of people who had been preparing for this exact situation. "I don't think they care about the numbers," he said quietly. The battle began when a nervous Kepleroid gunner fired prematurely at a human destroyer. The shot went wide, but Admiral Reeves took it as an act of aggression. Her response was immediate and overwhelming. "All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you protect child killers." The human fleet opened fire as one, 800 ships unleashing everything they had at the consortium force. The aliens had expected a brief skirmish, maybe some token resistance before the humans surrendered. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that seemed to have no concept of retreat. Captain Santos aboard the UES Maya's Promise found herself facing 3 consortium ships at once. Her destroyer was smaller and supposedly outgunned, but her crew fought with a ferocity that shocked their opponents. When the first alien ship targeted her engines, Santos rammed her ship directly into its hull, tearing both vessels apart in a ball of superheated metal. As her crew evacuated to the escape pods, Santos activated her ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion took out 2 more consortium vessels and cleared a path for the rest of her squadron to advance. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships threw themselves at the enemy with reckless abandon. The aliens had superior technology and greater numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that would sacrifice everything for victory. Admiral Texvar watched his formation crumble under the human assault and finally understood what he was fighting. These weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were parents and siblings and friends of every human child who might someday face the same fate as Maya Chen. All ships, withdraw, he ordered. Fall back to minimum safe distance. His aide looked at him in shock. Sir, we outnumber them 3-1. Surely we can— No, Texvar said firmly. We can't. Look at them, they're not fighting for territory or resources. They're fighting for the right to protect their children. There's no force in the galaxy stronger than that. As the consortium fleet pulled back, Admiral Reeves received damage reports from across her formation. She had lost 47 ships and thousands of good soldiers, but the enemy retreat was complete. More importantly, Vexthul remained in human custody. The trial of Vexthul began 6 months after Maya Chen's death, in the same courthouse where humanity had once tried its own war criminals. The building was old but dignified, its stone walls having witnessed the judgment of monsters throughout human history. Now it would see justice for a monster from the stars. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every major news organization in human space filled the gallery, along with diplomats from dozens of alien species who had come to see how humans dispense justice. In the front row sat Ambassador David Chen, his face thin and aged from months of grief, but his eyes alert and focused. Judge Margaret Harrison had presided over some of the most important trials in recent human history, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. As Vexthul was led into the courtroom in chains, his silver eyes scanning the crowd of humans with obvious fear, she felt the weight of not just human law but galactic history settling on her shoulders. This court is now in session, she announced. The people of Earth versus Vexthul of the Zephyrian Empire, charged with first-degree murder in the death of Maya Chen. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Sarah Kim, a woman who had volunteered for the case after watching footage of Maya's death. As she stood to deliver her opening statement, the courtroom fell completely silent. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she began. 6 months ago, a 17-year-old girl named Maya Chen was murdered in cold blood while attending a peace gathering. She was killed not because of anything she had done, but because of what she represented: humanity's hope for a peaceful future among the stars. Kim walked toward the jury box, her voice steady and clear. The defendant claims he killed Maya to send a message about human violence. Today we send a message back. In human society, the murder of children is the most serious crime possible. It doesn't matter if the killer is human or alien. Justice will be served. The trial lasted 3 weeks and was broadcast live across human space. Witnesses testified about Maya's character, her kindness, her intelligence, her dreams of becoming a diplomat like her father. Security footage from Luna Station was played, showing the moment of her death in graphic detail. When Vexthul took the stand in his own defense, the courtroom was so quiet that the sound of the air conditioning seemed loud. He spoke in heavily accented English, his silver eyes never meeting those of the humans who watched him. I did not act out of hatred, he said. I acted out of fear. Humans are violent by nature. Your species has a history of war and destruction that spans thousands of years. I believe that showing your true nature to the galaxy would prevent future conflicts. District Attorney Kim cross-examined him with surgical precision. So you decided to murder a child to prove that humans are violent? Vexthul paused, seeming to realize the contradiction in his logic for the first time. I believed it was necessary. Necessary to kill an innocent girl who had never hurt anyone. She was not innocent. She was human. The courtroom erupted in angry voices before Judge Harrison could restore order. In that moment, Vexthul had revealed the truth that many in the galaxy suspected but few would admit. that some species saw humans as inherently inferior, deserving of death simply for existing. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, their faces were grim but determined. The foreman, a middle-aged teacher from Earth's North American continent, stood to deliver the verdict. We find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Judge Harrison sentenced Vexthul to life in prison without the possibility of parole, to be served in Earth's maximum security facility for alien criminals. As the guards led him away, he looked back at Ambassador Chen with what might have been regret in his silver eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Chen stood slowly, his voice carrying across the silent courtroom. "Sorry doesn't bring back my daughter." The trial's conclusion marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. Within days of the verdict, the Galactic Consortium announced major reforms to their justice system. New laws were passed specifically protecting the citizens of member species from violence, with mandatory cooperation requirements for investigations. More importantly, humanity was invited to join the consortium's ruling council for the first time in their history. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive newcomers was now recognized as a major galactic power, their military capability and determination having earned them a seat at the table where decisions affecting trillions of beings were made. Admiral Reeves was promoted to Fleet Admiral and placed in charge of Earth's expanded military forces. The woman who had led 500,000 soldiers across the galaxy for one dead girl became the symbol of humanity's new status. When asked about her role in Maya's justice, she always gave the same answer. "We didn't do it for glory or power. We did it because children should be safe to dream about the stars." The memorial garden on Luna Station became a pilgrimage site, not just for humans, but for beings from across the galaxy. They came to see the place where Maya Chen had died, and to understand what had motivated humanity's incredible response. The blue flowers that grew there were tended by volunteers from dozens of species, each one carrying the message that innocent life was precious. Ambassador Chen retired from diplomatic service after the trial, but his final speech to the Galactic Consortium was broadcast across known space. Standing at the same podium where alien leaders had once dismissed his daughter's death as unimportant, he delivered words that would be remembered for generations. "My daughter Maya believed in peace between species," he said. "She died because someone thought human children didn't matter. But her death proved something that person never expected, that humans will cross the galaxy and face any enemy to protect the innocent. Maya's dream of peace is still possible, but it will be a peace built on respect, not on the belief that some lives matter less than others." 5 years after Maya's death, the changes in galactic society were obvious. No species dared to harm human civilians, knowing the response would be swift and overwhelming. But more than fear, there was a new understanding of what humanity represented, a people so devoted to protecting their children that they would sacrifice everything for family they had never met. The Zephyrian government paid reparations not just to the Chen family, but to establish schools across human space that taught both human and alien children about peaceful coexistence. The irony was not lost on anyone that Vexthul's attempt to prove human violence had instead created institutions dedicated to preventing future conflicts. Maya's bedroom in her father's house was preserved, exactly as she had left it, with blue flowers on the windowsill and books about diplomacy stacked on her desk. Visitors often came to see it, trying to understand how one girl's death had changed the course of galactic history. Her diary, found after her death, contained the entry she had written the night before the cultural exchange. "Tomorrow I get to meet aliens for the first time. Dad says they're just like us with families and hopes and dreams. I hope he's right. I hope we can all be friends someday." The human military that had been built to avenge Maya's death evolved into something different in the years that followed. Instead of just soldiers, they became protectors of innocent life throughout the galaxy. Human ships began patrolling trade routes, stopping pirates and slavers who had once operated with impunity. The species that had mobilized 500,000 soldiers for one dead girl became the guardians of children across the stars. On the 10th anniversary of Maya's death, a new tradition began. Every human ship in space fired a single shot into empty space at the exact moment she had died, creating a galaxy-wide display of lights that could be seen from hundreds of worlds. Other species began joining the ceremony, their own ships adding to the memorial that spanned light years. The girl who had dreamed of peace between species had achieved it, not through diplomacy, but through the simple truth that some things are worth fighting for. Her death had taught the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their absolute refusal to let innocent children die unavenged. In the end, Vexthal had been right about one thing. Humans were different from other species, but not because they were more violent or aggressive. They were different because they understood that family wasn't just about blood or species or planets of origin. Family was about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, no matter the cost. Maya Chen's memorial stone on Luna Station bore a simple inscription that had become humanity's unofficial motto. Remember, Maya. Remember what we're capable of when we stand together. And across the galaxy, whenever someone threatened the innocent, whenever the powerful tried to prey on the weak, those words echoed as a warning. Humanity had proven that they would cross any distance, face any enemy, and pay any price to protect their children. All of their children. Forever.